You are waiting for something dramatic to change your life, a breakthrough, a moment, a surge of motivation that finally makes everything easy. And while you wait, the quiet men are passing you, men who look ordinary, who do nothing impressive, who follow habits so dull they would bore you to explain them. That is the great deception. Power does not announce itself with noise. It arrives quietly, dressed in routine, disguised as repetition, hidden inside actions so small that the drifting mind calls them pointless. Yet these actions decide who rises and who remains a promise unfinished. I want you to listen carefully now, not with excitement, but with discipline, because what I am about to describe will not flatter you, entertain you, or make you feel clever. It will do something far more dangerous. It will work if you obey it. Most men fail not because they aim too low, but because they aim everywhere. They chase improvement the way a child chases fireworks, briefly impressed, quickly distracted, and soon back in the dark. They want results without rhythm, change without structure, success without boredom. Here is a truth few men can tolerate. The habits that change a life are rarely exciting. They are simple, repetitive, predictable. And that is precisely why they separate the strong from the drifting. The undisciplined mind cannot remain loyal to what does not stimulate it. You have likely tried to transform yourself before. You began with fire. You rearranged your plans. You made promises in moments of clarity. And then, slowly, quietly, without resistance, you returned to what was familiar, not because you are weak, but because you lacked a system that could survive boredom. I am not here to give you a system that looks impressive. I am here to show you how unnoticed habits create unmistakable authority, how a man who does the same small things daily becomes unrecognizable to those who only act when inspired. The year ahead does not need to be dramatic. It needs to be exact. Exact in what you do each morning. Exact in what you repeat each evening. Exact in what you refuse to negotiate with yourself, even when no one is watching and nothing seems to change. Understand this now. Results arrive last. Identity comes first. And identity is not built by grand gestures. It is built by private obedience. The man who governs his habits governs his future, even when the present looks unchanged. You may be thinking, this sounds too simple. That thought has ruined more men than failure ever could. Simplicity is rejected because it demands consistency, and consistency exposes character. Excuses thrive in complexity. Discipline thrives in routine. There is a reason the most powerful transformations are rarely discussed. The men who benefit from them do not speak loudly about how it happened. They allow the results to confuse others. They let their calm, their certainty, and their progress do the explaining. I will warn you of this. If you are looking for something thrilling, you should leave now. What I am about to unfold will sound almost insulting in its plainness. And yet, if you follow it for 1 year, you will quietly outgrow your former self without argument or announcement. You will notice it first in your mornings, less chaos, less negotiation, fewer internal debates. Then in your work, fewer false starts, more follow-through. Then in how others respond to you, not because you demanded respect, but because order has a way of revealing itself. These habits do not require talent. They do not require luck. They do not require favorable conditions. They require only one thing most men avoid: the willingness to do what feels unimpressive long enough for power to accumulate. Do not underestimate what repetition does to the mind. A thought repeated becomes a belief. An action repeated becomes a habit. A habit repeated becomes a personality. And a personality repeated becomes a destiny that no longer asks permission. The danger is not that these habits are difficult. The danger is that they are easy to dismiss, easy to delay, easy to say, I'll start later. And later has buried more potential than failure ever did. I am not asking you to change everything. I am asking you to choose a narrow path and walk it daily without applause, without discussion, without needing to feel inspired. The men who do this are never dramatic, but they are always inevitable. You do not need to tell anyone what you are building. In fact, you should not. Let them see the results and wonder what changed. Let them call it luck, timing, or personality. You will know it was habit. Simple, boring, and obeyed. If you are ready to stop searching for complexity and start practicing mastery, stay with me. I will lay before you habits so plain they will test your patience, and so powerful they will test your old identity. Listen as a man listens when he knows this year cannot be another repetition of the last. Listen not to be impressed, but to be instructed. Because what follows is not difficult, but it is decisive. Habit 1. The habit of governing the first thought of the day. There is a moment upon waking when the mind stands between two worlds, one shaped by what you have been and one shaped by what you may yet become. In this brief interval before memory has fully returned, the mind is open, unguarded, and receptive. It accepts whatever thought first enters its chamber. That first thought becomes the standard by which all later thoughts align, whether you realize it or not. Most men squander this sacred moment by surrendering it to habit. They awaken and call forth yesterday's doubts before they call forth their own strength. They invite the memory of old failures before forming a single new intention. Thus, the old identity rises swiftly and assumes command, not because it is strong, but because it is familiar. A familiar thought, repeated often, becomes a king that need not fight to rule. If you begin your morning as the same man you were yesterday, then yesterday's limitations will govern your day. And a day governed by old limitations becomes a week ruled by them, then a month, then a year, until a decade has passed, and you wonder why so little has changed. A man loses 10 years not through catastrophe, but through the quiet repetition of a single weak morning. When I studied the early life of a young mechanic laboring in obscurity, I discovered a practice that later shaped an empire. He would rise before dawn, not to begin work upon engines, but to begin work upon himself. He rehearsed in his mind the image of the man he intended to be. He impressed upon his morning thought the certainty that he was destined to create machines unlike any the world had known. Only later did the world learn his name, Henry Ford. Ford's genius was not merely mechanical, it was mental. He understood, consciously or not, that the morning mind is soft clay. Whatever image is pressed into it at dawn hardens throughout the day. If he allowed fear or fatigue to enter first, he would produce little of value. But if he allowed conviction and purpose to enter first, the day bent in his favor. This principle, though simple, has raised more men than talent alone ever could. Consider now your own morning thought. Does it lift you or lower you? Does it open the gate to a new identity or chain you once more to the old? If your first thought carries the tone of resignation, you have surrendered the day before it has begun. If your first thought carries the tone of purpose, you have already conquered half the battle before rising from bed. Speak with authority at dawn. The subconscious mind, still half asleep, responds to your voice with unusual obedience. Declare, I rise today in the image of the man I am becoming. Declare, my thoughts obey me before I obey the world. These words, spoken with conviction, plant a seed that grows quietly through every action of the day. The man who governs his morning thought walks differently. Others cannot always name the cause, but they feel it. They sense stability in him, as though his spirit has been anchored to something firm. He does not chase the day. He directs it. He does not rush toward his duties. He moves with the poise of one who has already shaped his outcome internally. This habit also sharpens your will. The will grows strong when it is used early. When you declare your state of mind before circumstances declare it for you, your will becomes commander rather than servant. A strong will shortens the distance between desire and attainment. A weak will lengthens it until desire becomes a fading echo. If you have lived many years repeating the same morning thought, your life has likely returned the same results. This is not misfortune. It is mathematics. The same cause applied daily produces the same effect. But a different cause applied daily produces a different destiny. The habit of governing the first thought is the lever capable of moving the entire structure of your life. Let me draw your attention to a truth that the average man overlooks. Your first thought each morning is not simply a thought. It is a choice of identity. When you awaken and think as the old self thinks, you choose to remain who you have been. When you awaken and think as the new self would think, you choose to live as that new self. Identity is carved by repetition, not by wishes. You may not notice the change at first. No great transformation announces itself with trumpets. It begins in silence. But as you practice this habit, the old voice inside you weakens. Its commands lose their authority. Its doubts fade. Its memories no longer have the power to chain your spirit. In its place rises a new tone, a tone of certainty, clarity, and purpose. Others will see it before you do. Your manner becomes more deliberate, your speech more measured, your work more exact. When a man acts from a clear morning intention, he does not scatter his energy as others do. His presence signals order, and order is respected, for it is rare. This habit does not require unusual intelligence, nor rare opportunity, nor favorable conditions. It asks only for obedience to a simple rule. Think with intention before the world thinks for you. The man who masters this rule masters his years. For years are composed of mornings, and mornings are composed of thoughts. A wandering morning thought multiplies into wasted years. A directed morning thought multiplies into a destiny so precise that others call it fortune. Fortune is not luck. Fortune is the result of a man who meets destiny at dawn rather than waiting for destiny to find him. Remember that thought is action in its earliest form. The first thought is the first action, and actions performed early bend actions performed later. A day that begins with a weak thought cannot end strongly except by accident. A day that begins with a strong thought cannot end weakly except by neglect. Now consider this. If one morning can shape one day, then 300 mornings can shape a year. And 10 years of disciplined mornings can shape a life so transformed that it bears no resemblance to the one you now inhabit. This is how you save decades, by refusing to hand your mornings to the former self who has already wasted too many. Let me offer you a second affirmation, one that strengthens the will and awakens the deeper faculties of the subconscious. I do not rise to remember who I was. I rise to become who I choose to be. Repeat it until it becomes a quiet certainty within you. Do not underestimate the old identity, for it is patient. It will attempt to return through emotion, memory, fatigue, or distraction. But if you guard the first thought, the old identity loses its foothold. It cannot rise where it is not fed. Habit is nourished by repetition. Break the repetition, and you break the habit. Now imagine the man you will become if you practice this habit daily. He is calm, deliberate, difficult to provoke, and easy to trust. He possesses a strange certainty that others admire but seldom understand. He appears fortunate even when no fortune was given to him. That is the power of governing the first thought. It builds a life others misinterpret as luck. Habit 2, the habit of choosing a single aim each morning. When I studied the failures of men who possessed talent, ambition, and promise, I found one flaw recurring more often than any other. They attempted to accomplish many things at once. Their minds leapt from idea to idea, never rooting deeply enough in one purpose to bring it to fruition. The undisciplined mind seeks variety. The purposeful mind seeks clarity. One rises, the other wanders. A single aim is like a torch carried before you through fog. It reveals just enough of the path to keep moving, yet not so much that you grow overwhelmed by distance. Without that torch, you stumble, not because the path is impossible, but because you have chosen to walk in darkness. Clarity dispels fear as surely as sunlight dispels shadow. When the mind knows its task, hesitation fades. Andrew Carnegie, a man whose success influenced continents, once said that the greatest lesson he learned in life was to place all his energies under one definite purpose. Before he became a titan of industry, he practiced the simple discipline of deciding each morning what outcome must be secured before day's end. Even when his tasks were small, he chose one to govern the rest. This habit trained his mind to act with precision, not with scattered intention. You may believe that your life is too complex to be ruled by one aim, but complexity is not a condition. It is a choice. To simplify your day is to strengthen your will. When a man begins with one clear objective, he becomes more effective in everything else he does. His thoughts no longer compete. They cooperate. His responsibilities no longer feel heavy. They fall into order. His time no longer slips away. It serves him. Consider how others perceive the man who lives by this habit. His movements appear deliberate, unhurried, confident. He seems to know exactly what he is doing while others around him improvise. Leaders trust him because he finishes what he begins. Companions admire him because he seldom appears overwhelmed. His work carries a mark of consistency that lesser men call talent, when in truth it is merely discipline. Each morning, speak your aim aloud. Give it a form that your subconscious mind can grasp. Declare, one aim commands my mind today. Say, my effort moves in one direction. Your aim need not be grand. It need only be definite. A clear small aim accomplishes more than a vague large one. Once the subconscious receives a definite instruction, it begins aligning your faculties to achieve it. This is the unseen machinery behind all deliberate progress. In The Law of Success, I wrote that definiteness of purpose is the first cause of all achievement. Yet most men misunderstand this. They believe purpose must be chosen once in life, carved into stone. In truth, purpose must be chosen daily. A broad purpose guides the year. A definite aim guides the day. Without a daily aim, even a noble purpose becomes lost in the clutter of routine. Let me tell you of a young man who once struggled beneath the weight of ambition. He had many dreams, each worthy, yet he accomplished none. At last, he adopted the practice of choosing one aim each morning. At first, it seemed too simple, even beneath his intellect. But as he followed it, he discovered a secret. Simplicity strengthens the will. His progress grew steady, and soon he became indispensable to his employer. That young man later became a respected leader in finance. His transformation began with a single morning decision. Your own mind may resist this habit. It may whisper that many things must be addressed at once. But the mind that resists simplicity is the mind that fears obedience. When you impose a single aim upon it, you deprive it of the pleasure of drifting. Drift is attractive to the undisciplined mind because drift requires nothing. Purpose requires everything. But what purpose demands, it rewards tenfold. A man who begins his day with one aim is like an archer who faces only one target. His arrow flies straight. A man who begins his day with many aims is like an archer surrounded by targets. His arrow wavers before leaving the bow. When you commit to one aim, you commit your entire being to its accomplishment. This unity of mind produces a force far greater than scattered thought. The subconscious thrives on clarity. If instructed to pursue 10 aims, it pursues none with conviction. But if entrusted with one aim, it pours its creative power into fulfilling it. It draws upon memory, imagination, emotion, and desire to bring forth ideas that remain hidden from the drifting mind. It is not the conscious mind that produces breakthroughs, but the subconscious, working under a single unmistakable command. Once this habit is formed, you will notice that your energy increases. Waste diminishes. The burden of choice becomes lighter. Your attention sharpens. Confusion fades. Even your speech becomes clearer, for uncertainty loses its hold on the man who knows precisely what he must accomplish today. Let me offer you an affirmation to anchor this habit within your spirit. My aim selects my thoughts select my actions, and my actions secure my destiny. Speak it until you feel its truth binding itself to the deeper currents of your will. At first, choosing one aim will feel unusual. You have lived by many aims for years. But as you practice this daily simplicity, you will discover how natural it feels to live by direction rather than impulse. What feels natural is merely what has been repeated. Replace the repetition of confusion with the repetition of clarity, and clarity becomes your nature. As your progress becomes visible, others will assume you have grown more capable or more fortunate. They will not suspect that the secret lies in a habit too simple for their pride to consider. Do not correct them. Let them attribute your rise to whatever cause they wish. The truth belongs to you alone. Habit 3, the habit of repeating a single command to the subconscious. Because of this truth, a man's entire destiny may be redirected by a single command repeated daily with unwavering intention. This command becomes the seed from which thoughts take root, and thoughts blossom into habits, habits into character, and character into the fate from which his life cannot escape. You need not possess genius to master your destiny. You must only master the words you feed your deeper mind. When you repeat a definite instruction each morning and each night, the subconscious accepts it as fact. It then begins to gather forces, ideas, and impulses that align with that instruction. A man may not notice the shift at first. The subconscious works quietly. But soon he finds himself thinking thoughts he did not think before, speaking words he did not speak before, and acting with confidence that appears to come from nowhere. Yet it comes from somewhere, from suggestion. In my study of successful men, I found that each one, consciously or not, practiced this habit. They held a single dominating thought and impressed it upon their minds until the thought became their nature. They were not lifted by fortune, but by repeated suggestion. The world applauded their achievements, but misunderstood the process that produced them. Their greatness was born long before others saw it, born in the silent repetition of a definite idea. The most remarkable demonstration of suggestion's power occurred within my own family. My son Blair entered this world without the ability to hear. Physicians declared the condition permanent. Yet I impressed upon my mind and upon his the unwavering belief that he would one day hear. I repeated this belief until it became a command to the subconscious, and in time the subconscious reshaped physical reality. Blair heard, spoke, and lived a life unbound by limitation. This was not miracle. It was obedience to law. The law is simple. What you repeat becomes your truth. If you repeat fear, fear becomes your master. If you repeat doubt, doubt chains your feet. If you repeat weakness, the subconscious will provide you with every justification for surrender. But if you repeat conviction, purpose, and strength, the subconscious will rise to meet those commands with resources the conscious mind does not possess. This is why many men remain trapped in mediocrity. They attempt to change their actions without changing their underlying suggestions. They attempt to live bravely while repeating fearful thoughts. They attempt to rise while repeating the language of limitation. No man can command his future while giving orders to his subconscious that contradict his desires. The deeper mind always wins. Something such as, I move with purpose and power, or I advance daily toward my chosen destiny, or I am becoming the man my future requires. The words themselves matter less than the certainty with which they are spoken. Do not confuse repetition with mere recital. Recital is the act of speaking words. Suggestion is the act of imprinting belief. The subconscious responds not to the sound of your voice, but to the emotion behind it. Speak your command as a decree, not as a wish. Speak it as a man speaks when he has already accepted the truth of his words and expects the world to obey them. You may feel uncomfortable at first, for your old identity will attempt to resist the new command. The former self does not surrender easily. It has lived within you for years, fed by repeated thoughts of doubt and fear. When you attempt to override those thoughts with a new declaration, the old identity will whisper objections. Ignore them. They are simply the last cries of a habit losing power. The subconscious resembles rich soil. Whatever you plant grows. If you plant confusion, confusion flourishes. If you plant clarity, clarity takes root. The soil does not discriminate. Its harvest depends entirely on the seed. When you repeat a definite suggestion, you plant the seed again and again until the soil cannot resist it. Let me offer you a powerful affirmation for anchoring this habit. My subconscious obeys my highest intention. Speak it as though you are speaking to a loyal servant capable of building the life you envision, for that is precisely what the subconscious becomes once trained. Repeat your chosen command each morning when the mind is fresh, and each night when the conscious barriers fade. These two moments are the gates through which suggestion passes most easily. If you feed the subconscious purpose at dawn and at dusk, it will work tirelessly in your behalf while you move through the day and even while you sleep. Do not share your command with others. It is a private covenant between you and the deeper mind. The doubting opinions of others pollute suggestion. Hold your command silently, faithfully, as a man holds a treasure too valuable to expose. Let others witness your transformation without knowing its cause. As this habit strengthens, you will feel your thoughts aligning with your aim. Actions that once required force will become natural. Habits that once felt foreign will feel familiar. Your character will shift quietly, then dramatically. The old identity will decline until it becomes nothing more than a faint memory without authority. Habit 4. The habit of completing one small task without negotiation. A man who cannot command himself in small matters will never command himself in great ones. His will unused becomes feeble. His promises to himself become suggestions rather than orders. His ambitions remain castles in the air, unsupported by the foundation of habit. The world watches him begin enthusiastically and end quietly, abandoned to drift. Nothing sabotages a man faster than the habit of negotiating with his lesser impulses. In my study of high achievement, I found that successful men differ from others not in talent but in obedience to their own decisions. They do not negotiate with themselves. They do not ask whether they feel like acting. They act. Each small instance of obedience becomes another link in the chain of self-mastery. Over time, this chain becomes unbreakable. The small task you choose must never be chosen for its difficulty, but for its ability to awaken self-rule. It might be arranging a corner of your environment, writing a brief message you have postponed, reading one page of a chosen work, or organizing a small detail of your affairs. What you choose matters little. What matters is that you complete it without inner debate. The debate itself is the enemy. It is the voice of the former self seeking to remain in control. It whispers later and not now, and this is too small to matter. That voice has stolen more years than failure ever has. The moment you obey the whisper, you reinforce the old identity. But the moment you ignore it and act, you weaken its power. This habit will make others view you differently. They will observe that your conduct lacks hesitation. Your movements become precise. Your work becomes dependable. You appear to them as a man of discipline, though your discipline arises not from grand acts, but from small ones consistently performed. Trust follows discipline. and opportunity follows trust. The subconscious mind also responds to this habit with remarkable loyalty. When you complete small tasks without negotiation, you instruct the subconscious that your commands are final. It becomes easier to act upon larger decisions. You eliminate the inner resistance that weakens all ambition. In time, your identity shifts from one who wishes to one who acts. Let me give you an affirmation for this habit. I obey my own command without hesitation. Speak it each morning and again when facing your daily task. The words build a path between intention and action. As you repeat them, the distance between decision and obedience grows shorter until they become one. If this habit feels beneath your pride, you must ask yourself whether pride is the guardian of your progress or the enemy of it. Great men are built upon foundations so simple that lesser men overlook them. Pride seeks complicated solutions because complexity flatters the ego. Discipline seeks simple solutions because simplicity exposes the truth. Each day, choose your task. Do it immediately. Do it quietly. Do it without explanation. Do it without praise. This silence strengthens the act. It becomes a private victory between you and your future. Others do not need to witness it. Let the results of your discipline speak in their season. Let me offer you a second affirmation. I do not negotiate with weakness. Repeat it when the old self attempts to bargain. Weakness always attempts to negotiate. Strength refuses to answer. When you answer weakness with silence and action, you starve it. A starved weakness dies. You will notice after several weeks of this practice a shift in your sense of identity. You will feel more grounded. You will trust yourself more. You will no longer fear commitments, for you have proven to yourself that you follow through. This internal confidence radiates outward and alters the way others treat you. A man who trusts himself invites others to trust him. Look closely at the lives of those who accomplish little. They are not less intelligent than you. They are less obedient to themselves. Their weakness is not mental, but spiritual. They have allowed their impulses to lead their lives. But you are choosing a different course. You are strengthening the will daily. You are removing the inner conflict that has delayed your progress for years. When you obey your own command, you align your entire nature. Your emotions cease to sabotage you. Your imagination supports your ambition. Your attention grows steady. This is why this habit must remain small. A small habit cannot be resisted by the mind. A small habit cannot be justified away. A small habit becomes permanent because it demands so little that refusal becomes illogical. Once permanent, it carries within it the seed of much greater change. There is a law seldom understood. A man who completes small tasks faithfully becomes incapable of failing in large ones. The will, once strengthened, applies itself to everything. The man who refuses negotiation in the small things soon refuses it in the great. He becomes the master of his days, the ruler of his conduct, and the builder of his destiny. This is how a man rises, quietly, unimpressively, through obedience to a small task that serves as the anchor point for all discipline. Habit 5. The habit of guarding the gate of thought and speech. Most men allow their speech to wander where it will. They complain without noticing. They criticize without purpose. They repeat doubts as though reciting prayers to failure. They treat their words like leaves blown by wind rather than arrows guided by intention. Yet every careless word weakens the will, bends the mind toward confusion, and strengthens the identity a man wishes to escape. Let me be clear. This habit is not about silence. It is about authority. It is about refusing to give your voice to thoughts that do not serve your purpose. The spoken word reinforces the inner belief. If you speak doubt, you bind yourself to doubt. If you speak criticism of others, you teach your subconscious to expect criticism of yourself. If you speak fear, you instruct the deeper mind to prepare for defeat. When I observed the rise of John Wanamaker from humble beginnings to national influence, I found a quality that separated him from his peers. His words were chosen with care. He spoke seldom, but when he spoke, his words carried weight. They reflected a mind trained in discipline, clarity, and intention. Men listened to him because he listened to himself first. He refused to speak in ways that weakened his spirit. Examine your own speech. Do you speak to be heard or to be understood? Do you speak from fear or from purpose? Do you speak to impress others or to strengthen yourself? A man's speech reveals whether he has trained his thought or allowed his thought to drift like a leaf upon water. Each time you speak, you reinforce an identity. If you speak like the former self, you revive him. If you speak like the man you intend to become, you strengthen him. This is why the careless man grows weaker with age. His speech has fed his doubts for decades. But the deliberate man grows stronger. His words nourish discipline. This habit requires that you remove from your speech certain poisons: complaint, gossip, excessive explanation, negative prophecy, and idle judgment. Each of these outflows weakens your will. Each one leaks your spiritual strength. When you speak a complaint, you surrender authority over circumstances. When you speak gossip, you confess your own insecurity. When you speak doubt, you train the mind to expect difficulty. Let me offer you a powerful affirmation for this habit. My speech builds my destiny. Speak it quietly until you feel your words taking on new weight. A man who guards his speech develops a mysterious authority. Others sense discipline in his tone. They trust his words because they know he does not scatter them lightly. Such a man rarely speaks of his plans. He simply executes them. He gains influence not by noise, but by steadiness. In a world of chatter, his silence is respected. There is a second affirmation to anchor this discipline. I speak only what strengthens my aim. Let these words become the filter through which all speech must pass. Some men fear that disciplined speech will make them dull or restrained. But the opposite is true. The man who guards his speech becomes more expressive, not less. His words carry meaning. His tone carries influence. His silence carries gravity. He becomes a man whose presence speaks long before his mouth does. If you wish to see how deeply this habit transforms identity, practice it for 1 week. By the 3rd day, you will notice that your emotions respond differently. Frustration fades more quickly. Fear loses force. Thoughts become ordered. You begin thinking like a man who expects progress, not difficulty. This shift arises because your speech no longer feeds the impulses that once controlled you. Let me share a principle seldom taught. The subconscious believes any thought spoken with emotion. Your speech is a tool to impress your will upon the deeper mind. When you speak faith, the subconscious prepares strength. When you speak clarity, the subconscious organizes thought. When you speak discipline, the subconscious reinforces your resolve. This habit turns speech into a builder of destiny rather than a destroyer of it. Now consider the cost of careless speech. Every time you speak fear, you rehearse failure. Every time you speak doubt, you weaken your aim. Every time you speak criticism, you reveal insecurity. These habits destroy a man from within long before the world ever challenges him. Many men fail not because of circumstances, but because of the way they speak to themselves and to others. You will find that the more you guard your speech, the more you guard your thought. And the more you guard your thought, the more you guard your future. A guarded mind becomes a fortress. A guarded speech becomes its gate. This habit also sharpens ambition. When you eliminate negative words, you eliminate excuses. When you eliminate excuses, you eliminate confusion. When you eliminate confusion, direction emerges. This is how clarity is formed, not through complex planning, but through disciplined speech. As you become consistent in this practice, others will begin describing you in new terms. They may say you have become calm. They may say you have become wise. They may say you have become reliable. What they truly mean is this: you have become disciplined in thought and speech, and discipline is rare enough to be mistaken for virtue. Make this your final affirmation for habit 5. My words reveal the man I am becoming, not the man I was. Speak it until it becomes the standard by which you measure every sentence. Habit 6. The habit of creating order in one small area of life. Many men attempt to conquer their inner world while living in outer disorder. They demand clarity from their minds while tolerating chaos on their desks, in their rooms, in their habits, and in the smallest corners of their daily affairs. They do not see the contradiction. They fight confusion internally while permitting it externally, and the two forms of disorder reinforce each other until progress becomes nearly impossible. This domain might be a desk, a drawer, a schedule, or a routine. Its nature does not matter. Its obedience does. The key is to create a place where confusion cannot exist, a place governed solely by intention. Each time you return this area to order, you reaffirm your authority over your environment, and by extension, over yourself. Look to the early conduct of John D. Rockefeller. Long before he gained immense influence, he practiced meticulous order in the simplest matters of bookkeeping. Every figure recorded with precision, every line ruled with care, every ledger maintained with exactness. His associates saw in him a discipline uncommon for his youth. This habit of order shaped his thinking and prepared him for decisions that later influenced nations. Rockefeller's careful records did more than organize numbers. They organized his mind. They trained him to recognize patterns, remove waste, and control risk. They nurtured an ability to remain calm under pressure because his mind reflected the order he had imposed upon his surroundings. This is the hidden power of external order. It changes the inner world as surely as sunlight changes the morning sky. When you bring order to a small area of your life, you create a sanctuary where your thoughts can gather without interruption. You discover peace in precision, strength in simplicity, and dignity in attention to detail. Others may overlook this habit, dismissing it as trivial, but such dismissal reveals their ignorance of the laws that govern human advancement. Greatness is built first in small places. Let me offer you a principle seldom spoken. A man either commands his environment or he is commanded by it. There is no middle ground. If your surroundings are chaotic, they drain your mental strength each day in ways too subtle to notice until years have passed. But if your surroundings reflect order, they replenish your strength, sharpen your mind, and remind you of the standards you have chosen. This habit also affects how others perceive you. A man who maintains order in small matters appears reliable in greater ones. His presence signals discipline. His movements appear deliberate. His decisions inspire trust. People instinctively believe that the man who orders his environment can order his affairs, and they are correct. Do not underestimate the subconscious importance of this habit. When you clean a desk, arrange papers, or place objects with intention, you are doing far more than tidying. You are demonstrating to your deeper mind that you are not overwhelmed by life, that you possess mastery, even if only in one small domain. The subconscious accepts this mastery as fact, and once accepted, it begins to replicate it in other areas of your life. Here is an affirmation to anchor the habit within you. Where I impose order, I impose strength. Repeat it each time you return your chosen area to its proper state. Store this truth. Order is evidence of intention. When someone enters a man's environment and sees order, they know, without words, that he governs himself. They sense power before he speaks. They feel calm in his presence because his life radiates discipline. A disordered environment radiates anxiety and division. An ordered environment radiates clarity and unity. Continue practicing this habit until your chosen area of order becomes effortless. You will feel a shift within yourself. You will sense increased mental clarity, a stronger willingness to begin tasks, and a deeper respect for your own standards. Each of these changes compounds, saving years of wasted effort caused by confusion, indecision, and scattered attention. Now let me offer a second affirmation. My surroundings obey my purpose. Use it when you feel resistance. That resistance is merely the old identity attempting to defend its former territory. Once this habit becomes yours, an interesting phenomenon will occur. You will feel uneasy when disorder appears. This unease is not discomfort. It is the sign of a rising standard. Your old self tolerated chaos. Your new self rejects it because it contradicts the identity you are building. This shift marks one of the clearest proofs of transformation. As you progress, expand your domain of order slowly. Do not attempt to order your entire life at once. That is the mistake of the impulsive man. Order spreads naturally once the foundation is firm. You need only maintain the first domain with perfect consistency. The subconscious will handle the rest. This habit is the turning point for many men. Thought becomes clearer, decisions become easier, days become smoother, and opportunities more frequent. Life begins to reflect the internal order you have cultivated. What once felt burdensome begins to feel natural. Habit 7. The habit of holding attention on one idea. Longer than comfort allows. In my study of thousands of men, I learned that the average mind attempts to escape difficulty the moment thought becomes uncomfortable. It leaps from idea to idea, seeking novelty instead of depth. It begins the work of creation, but abandons it before imagination has time to ripen. Such a mind remains shallow, and shallow thought cannot produce profound achievement. Consider the example of Thomas Edison. He was not lifted by rare genius, as many believe, but by uncommon persistence of attention. While others grew weary after a few attempts, Edison remained with an idea through thousands of failures. His attention was not scattered by boredom nor defeated by difficulty. He held his thought steadily until it revealed its solution. In doing so, he bent the laws of nature to his will. This habit of sustained attention is one of the rarest on earth. Most men cannot remain with one idea for more than a few minutes before emotion pulls them away. The mind whispers, "This is enough. This is dull. This is too difficult. This is not working." These whispers are the voice of the old identity defending its territory. It knows that once your attention becomes firm, its power dies. When you train yourself to hold attention, you begin shaping your own nature. A new identity forms, one capable of doing what ordinary men refuse to do. The world rewards such a man because he accomplishes what others abandon. Opportunity gravitates toward him. Ideas reveal themselves to him. Confidence accumulates within him. Let me offer you an important truth. All great discoveries are the result of attention held beyond the point where lesser men quit. Every invention, every work of art, every triumph of leadership came from a mind that refused to abandon its aim. This is why sustained attention saves decades, because most of your rivals surrender before they have uncovered a fraction of their potential. Begin this habit by selecting a single idea, question, or problem. Sit with it, write about it, think upon it. Resist the temptation to escape. When the mind attempts to wander, bring it back gently but firmly. Each return strengthens the will. Each moment of disciplined thought forges mental power. You will soon notice that your mind grows steady. Thoughts that once pulled you away lose their strength. Boredom becomes manageable. Difficulty becomes tolerable. You begin to feel the rise of a new faculty, the faculty of directed thought. This faculty, once awakened, becomes a tool of immense power. It allows you to learn faster, solve problems more effectively, and generate ideas that once required great effort. Here is an affirmation to anchor this habit. My attention obeys my command. Repeat it whenever you feel the pull of distraction. Say also, I remain where progress is born. For progress is never born in the restless mind. It is born in the patient one. Attention also strengthens the subconscious. When you hold a thought long enough, the subconscious accepts it as a command. It begins working upon it even while your conscious mind rests. This is why men who remain faithful to one idea often experience sudden breakthroughs. They are the result of subconscious labor brought forth into consciousness. Now understand this. Attention is the fuel of faith. The more you hold your mind upon a purpose, the stronger your belief in its attainment becomes. And belief, strengthened by attention, becomes a force that bends circumstances to your favor. Without sustained attention, faith weakens. With it, faith becomes certainty. You will find that the habit of attention influences every other habit you practice. It strengthens your speech, your orderliness, your ability to finish tasks, and your capacity for clear thought. All your habits hang upon the strength of your attention. Without it, no habit endures. With it, every habit deepens. This discipline also trains you to endure discomfort. Growth occurs at the edge of your patience. When you remain with an idea past the point where you once fled, you expand your capacity for achievement. The small increase in endurance compounds over months into mental power far beyond what you once believed possible. Reflect, too, on the influence this habit has upon your identity. The old you sought stimulation. The old you surrendered to distraction. The old you preferred motion without progress. But the new you holds steady, remains present, and thinks with purpose. Each day you practice this habit, you bury the former self and strengthen the rising one. Let me offer you one more principle. He who commands his attention commands his destiny. No force is more valuable. Talent without attention is wasted. Opportunity without attention is lost. Desire without attention is nothing. Attention is the muscle that lifts every other part of your life. Habit 8, the habit of doing more than you are paid for. Most men misunderstand compensation. They believe they must first receive more before they can give more. They wait for recognition before they exert extra effort. They demand higher pay before they produce higher value. Such thinking places reward before service, and that inversion blocks advancement. Nature does not pay interest before principle. Similarly, life does not reward a man before he proves he is worthy of reward. To save 10 years of your life, perhaps 20 or even 30, you must establish the habit of performing more service than you are paid to render. Not occasionally, not when inspired, but daily until it becomes the signature of your character. This habit transforms a man into an indispensable force. Employers notice him. Opportunity seeks him. The world cannot ignore him, for he has made himself rare. When you do more than you are paid for, your character becomes strengthened. Your pride becomes elevated. Your skill becomes refined. You gain experience others never touch. You develop resourcefulness, initiative, and confidence. These internal gains always precede external reward. And because internal gains compound, the rewards that eventually arise far exceed anything you could have demanded at the beginning. Let me offer you an affirmation. I give more than I am asked. My service builds my opportunity. Repeat it until your mind accepts that service is not loss, but investment. Most men resist this habit because they believe it advantages others more than themselves. They imagine their employer gaining while they remain stagnant. This reasoning is short-sighted and reveals an ignorance of the true nature of opportunity. You do not work for your employer. You work for your future. The service you render today is not a gift to another. It is a declaration to the world of what you are becoming. Each act of overservice is a silent announcement to your subconscious that you are not an average man. You are a man of rising standards, a man who commands himself, a man destined for authority. The subconscious accepts this belief and begins preparing circumstances that match it. Advancement becomes a matter of sequence, not chance. Others will begin to treat you differently. They will see in you the qualities of leadership. You will become the one others depend upon. You will be entrusted with greater responsibility, not because you demand it, but because you demonstrate readiness for it. People instinctively rely on the man who consistently exceeds expectation. This habit also breeds confidence. A man who renders more service than required knows his worth. He does not fear competition, for he has already separated himself from the multitude. He walks with assurance, not from pride, but from the knowledge that he has built competence day after day, while others preserve their energy for themselves. Let me address a common objection. What if my employer never recognizes my additional effort? The answer is simple. Life will. Opportunity may not come from your present situation, but it will come. Service is never lost. Every additional act plants a seed in the fertile field of destiny. The harvest may not grow where you expect, but it will grow. When you give more than you receive, you form a habit that reshapes identity. Instead of being a man who waits, you become a man who initiates. Instead of being a man who demands reward first, you become a man who earns reward naturally. This habit dissolves entitlement and replaces it with personal power. Let me share a truth from the law of success. No man becomes great until he has first developed the spirit of cheerful service. Not service forced upon him, nor service rendered grudgingly, but service given willingly and with enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is the spark that sets service ablaze, making it a force others cannot resist. Your daily work becomes more satisfying when performed with excellence. You gain pride in your craft. Even mundane tasks gain dignity when you perform them with the spirit of mastery. This spirit separates the mediocre from the exceptional. Two men may perform the same task, but one becomes remarkable because he does it with purpose. Here is a second affirmation. I raise the standard wherever I stand. Repeat it whenever you feel tempted to do only what is required. The great mistake of the common man is believing that minimum effort preserves energy. In truth, minimum effort weakens the soul. Only the man who expands beyond the requirement expands his capacity for success. Let me draw your attention to how this habit influences your subconscious. When you do more than you are paid for, you tell the deeper mind that you are not limited by circumstances. You show it that you have reserves of power. The subconscious responds by elevating your expectations and sharpening your abilities. Soon you find that you outperform even yourself. This habit also protects you from the greatest danger in the workplace, becoming invisible. The average man blends into the background. His work creates no distinction. He is rarely noticed, seldom remembered, and easily replaced. But the man who exceeds expectations becomes indispensable. He becomes a source of stability, not because he demands attention, but because his work commands it. Such a man cannot remain unnoticed forever. Even if his present environment fails to reward him, another will. Men of initiative are discovered. They are drawn into leadership, into partnerships, into enterprises they once believed beyond their reach. Let me offer you a final insight. Doing more than you are paid for is not a task. It is a declaration that you are larger than your position, a declaration that you intend to rise, a declaration that you are shaping yourself for a future far beyond your present station. When this habit becomes natural, you will discover a new truth. You no longer compete with others, for others no longer operate at your level. You no longer fear stagnation, for stagnation is impossible to the man who advances voluntarily. You no longer feel limited, for your service expands your identity. This habit, simple and quiet, has raised more men than genius ever has. It builds character, power, reputation, and opportunity, all through the act of giving what others withhold. And now, having mastered service, you are prepared for a higher habit, a habit that deepens thought, sharpens vision, and connects you with the source of all inner guidance. That habit is daily solitude. Habit 9, the habit of spending a few minutes in daily solitude. Most men fear solitude because they fear meeting themselves. They fill their hours with sound, movement, tasks, distractions, and conversation, not because these activities are necessary, but because silence forces them to examine the truth.